Welcome to Our Weird World. I'm your host, John Henson, and today, the fourth week of Serial Killer September, and it is, I've teased this a couple of times, like, this is a story this week could have been way worse, all right? It's going to be pretty bad, not going to lie, but it could have been so much worse. Like, this dude had a master plan to just be the worst serial killer ever. It didn't quite work out, but oh boy, if it could have. Like, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Just really genius, honestly, how he was going to do it. So I've teased it enough. Let's get into the story of Israel Keyes.
Story time. Story time. Story time? Story time.
Israel Keyes was born on January 7th, 1978 in Cove, Utah, which is a place people go when they're running from something. Listen, I've only been out west a couple of times. I've been to Phoenix twice. And even Phoenix, which is a very, as polished as you can get for the desert, a very polished metropolitan area. The people there, everyone there looks like they are on the run from something. They just look like they have done something heinous in their past. And that's the only way I could describe it, because, it's not like a singular style. It's not like it's just this, it's not like everyone there has tattoos all over their face and they just wear leather vests all the time. Like, there are some of those people, but just, even just like the waiter and the bartender at Buffalo Wild Wings, just like, what have you done? Why are you here? Why do you live here in this just borderline uninhabitable place? All right. And Utah, not that much different. All right. A lot of desert, a lot of arid, no water having places. All right. And it just, anyway, now granted, a lot of people who live in Utah because they're Mormons. Israel Keyes and the Keyes family, they were not Mormons. They moved out to Utah because they were the kind of people who didn't believe in like hospitals and modern medicine, right? Like they lived in that part of like Utah, and there are places like that in like Montana, Idaho, where it's just like, I'm a Republican, but I hate the government. I hate them all. I share the Republican values, but I hate the government. I don't trust them. Now, government ain't going to take, I'm going to get my land and my guns, and they ain't going to dictate how to live my life. And I'm just going to live out here off the grid and, suture my own wounds and have my own babies at home. And that's what they did. And the Keyes family had 10 children at home, which is crazy. Right? I've had 2 children. I have not personally. I've seen the birth. I've watched my wife give birth to a child at a hospital twice. And I don't know how anyone can do that at home. All right? Like, if my wife had given birth in one of the bathtubs in our house, I'm never going in that bathroom again. All right? I don't know how she could ever go in that bathroom again. It's traumatic. It is like, ugh, because there's so much going on when you birth a child. Like, one, you got to have someone there to pull that thing out. All right. Sometimes I guess if you're doing it at home, the mother just kind of grabs it by the head and just yanks it out. I don't know. But then you got all the afterwards to just kind of dig out. And I don't want that in my bathtub. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to like body shame women here by any means. I just like the same way that like, if, I don't know, man, if like some random dude broke into my house and just diarrheaed all over my bathtub, I'm probably not going to want to go into that bathroom ever again, at least for a while. All right. I don't know. It just, because I'm just always it's not going to be there, but psychologically, I feel like I'm going to still smell it. And so just a woman giving birth, just walking in there months afterwards, and it just smells like a pile of nickels everywhere. Just know it's gross. And there are just some things. All bodies are beautiful. But there's some things that let's just keep to ourselves, is all I'm saying. Or let's keep it to a sterile environment and trust hospitals and modern medicine because it's great and it works. Other than that, back onto the story, the Keyes family also didn't really believe in basic comforts. So like their homes never had heat or electricity. So, no heat, no air conditioning. They didn't have running water. So no bathrooms, like no toilets. They had an outhouse. They didn't have any way to communicate with the outside world. They also never got social security numbers for their kids because, again, they didn't want the government tracking them with their socialism or marks of the beast. Because, guys, guess what? Did you know that your social security number, that is the mark of the beast, right? It's not 666, all right? It's not like some stamp or some microchip that's coming in the future. It's already here, baby. It's called your social security number. And guess what? Every country has their own version of that. So everyone's on the grid, baby. Everyone's marked. Everyone's got it, except for the Keyes family because they're smart. They know what's going on. And so they never got social security numbers for their kids. They were originally Mormon, but it got stale pretty quickly. And so they ended up moving to Colville, Washington, which, again, out in eastern Washington, just where all of these crazy anti-government, live off the grid people are. And then they converted to this group, this religious denomination called the Ark. And the Ark believed that white people were the true chosen ones of God rather than the Jews. And that actually the Jews were biological descendants of Satan. Fun fact, this church and this specific congregation was also the home of Chevy and Cheyenne Kehoe, who would later torture and murder a family in Arkansas in honor of the Aryan Republican Army. And so they were attending the same church that the Keyes family was at in Colville. So, like, these are not great people, all right? It's like going to church on Sunday, pastors coming up there. Oh, hello, greetings, everyone. Welcome, all of ye chosen people, all ye chosen whites. Hey, what's that black guy doing back there? Get him out of here. And here we are. Remember, children, the Jews are actually spawns of Satan. We are the chosen ones. Kill all the Jews, blah, 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 blah. And so, like, and everyone's just like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I can see how the Bible says that. So I don't know, man. When the 1990s arrived, Keyes began breaking into people's homes and stealing their guns. But rather than run back to safety, Keyes would just hide nearby and wait for the families to come home and realize that their stuff was missing and freak out about it. He also enjoyed torturing cats because, what normal teenager does. No, whatever. In 1994, at the age of 16, Keyes built himself a log cabin by hand on his parents' property and moved in, much to his mother's dismay, which I don't know why. She's got 9 other kids to keep track of. She can't be sad that one of them decided to just build their own cabin. Do you know how happy I would be if one of my kids just built a home for themselves by hand and moved into it? Like, that would be crazy. I mean, look, I have a detached garage. If one of my kids at age 16 was like, hey, Dad, I want to convert the garage into my own guest house, I'll say, look, it's halfway done for you already. Throw some insulation in there, throw some walls up, get some running water in there, hook an AC up, you're golden. Go for it. I'm totally fine with that. Whatever. His mom was not fine with it. His mother also grew even more distraught when Keyes was arrested for shopping a few months later. His parents then became extremely upset when they searched his cabin and found a gigantic stash of stolen guns. Not necessarily a gigantic stash of, I don't know, like porn magazines and extremely stiff socks, but a ton of guns. And again, both are very alarming. I don't want to walk into my kid's guest house / converted garage and see either of those things. One of those things I would be less freaked out about than the other, because at least one's natural. The other one, I don't love that idea. All right, what are you doing with all those guns? Why does anyone need more than a gun? All right, like, okay, maybe two, right? Have yourself a little, if you're a hunter, have yourself a hunting rifle. That's fine. I get it, and then have yourself a little handgun for all of that crime you're deterring all of the time. Like, whatever, sure, go for it. But do you need a whole arsenal? No. I've brought this up multiple times. No one needs like more than 2 guns, right? But I'm a collector. I'm an enthusiast. But okay, so what? You keep your collection locked up all of the time that you can't even sit around and enjoy it? Yeah, I collect coins and they're mostly locked up, and people who collect Pokemon cards are usually just keeping them all in a binder, so that logic kind of actually works. Anyway, moving on. On March, as punishment for his gigantic stash of stolen guns, Keyes' parents forced him to chop firewood to pay back his victims. Not give the guns back, but to chop firewood and give it. I don't know. It's so dumb. On March 2nd, 1996, Keyes found 12-year-old Julie Harris walking to church. Now, Julie, who was a Special Olympics athlete, had 2 prosthetic feet, and had won a gold medal in downhill skiing. I don't know. Now, listen, I don't know if this is like the top tier Special Olympics where like all of the chromies are going to like international competition, or if this is just like a local Special Olympics downhill skiing where like everybody gets a gold medal. I don't know. But Julie, she got 2 prosthetic feet. She just kind of making her way as best she could. Keyes picks her up on the side of the road and just takes her off and kills her. Her body would not be found for over a year. In 1997, Keyes began dating his boss's daughter and wrote in his journal about all of the sexual thoughts he was having. Why? Why would anyone do that? I get maybe journaling. I don't journal. Like, as much as I write, I find journaling to be a waste of time. Like, I'm writing down my thoughts. Ugh, gross. Like, no one needs to know about my thoughts. And so why are the people who journal gonna put their most deepest sexual fantasies on paper so that someone can eventually find it? It's probably honestly part of the thrill for them. Like, ooh, what if someone finds out? What if someone finds out I killed this girl with the fake feet? What if someone finds out I want to just like really choke my boss's daughter out? Whatever. I don't know. Despite being a legal adult at this point at 19 years old, Keyes' parents, of course, they found the journal and then forced him to move with them to Maupin, Oregon, to get away from all of his lustful yearnings of his boss's daughter. Once the family had gotten settled in and built another cabin with no electricity or running water, which is crazy. Like, they've moved at least 3 times, and all 3 times they have willingly been like, God, what does this house need? I mean, we've got a lot of good natural light. Really got a nice open concept here. Should we install some electrical lines, have some lighting, like some, electric lights for when, it gets dark? Nah, no, we just got candles. Let's see, what else? The kitchen's looking pretty bare. Why don't we add like a sink? Maybe do something with this open little cubby area over here. Maybe a nice laundry room. We should run some pipes or something through. Nah. Seems like a waste of time. I don't know. It just, man, these people. Listen, I totally understand why this guy became a psychopath. If I had been raised in that environment, I would kill people too, just out of sheer boredom. Like, or just as a way to try to get away from anything whatsoever. I would hate my parents. I'd kill them first. All right? Not going to lie. My parents raised me in a house with no heat, no air conditioning, no running water. I just got to walk around, got to go out in the middle of the night and poop in an outhouse when it's dark. I've just got like a candle lantern. No. As soon as I figure out how to do it, I'm killing my parents first. Screw that, man. Oh, God. Anyway, I am still on this guy's side. I will not be on his side the entire time. But anyway, once they got settled in their new home in Maupin, Oregon, Keyes did go out and kidnap and rape another woman. However, almost as soon as they had gotten used to living in Maupin, the Keyes family moved across the country to Smyrna, Maine to become Amish because why not? Everything else is just clearly not working out for this family. We started out as Mormons, and to think that like starting out as Mormons is like the best that you're gonna do is crazy, because Mormonism wasn't it for them. So then they go and join this anti-Semitic church. That doesn't work out. So then they go across the country to go live in the Maine wilderness to be Amish. And granted, their lifestyle's pretty Amish to begin with, so it probably wasn't a huge transition for them, but still, that family is exhausting. Keyes, however, he stayed behind because it was much easier to be a non-Amish murderer than it was to be an Amish murderer, probably. He did, though, move to upstate New York, so he was kind of close-ish to his family, got his GED, and then he moved down to New Jersey and joined the Army. Keyes served at Fort Hood in Texas and then Fort Lewis in Washington. He started drinking and doing drugs, mainly just to rebel against his parents, who he knew would lose their mind if they ever found out what he was doing. They were probably really just distraught that he joined the military and had access to all of the advanced military technologies like toilets. Anyway, despite his newfound binge drinking problem, because he often really impressed other soldiers by drinking entire bottles of Wild Turkey bourbon in one sitting. And like, look, Wild Turkey's good for a bourbon. It's not my favorite alcohol. Like, most bourbon smells and tastes like gasoline, but Wild Turkey is digestible. All right. And Keyes, he just throwing back an entire fifth as like a party trick for the rest of the soldiers. However, besides that, Keyes had a great reputation in the Army and he was well regarded by his fellow soldiers. Unbeknownst to everyone he was with at Fort Lewis, though, Keyes had actually begun renting various vehicles to drive around the area, where he murdered at least 4 people between 1999 and 2000. And again, this is kind of a smart strategy, right? Like, he can't use his own vehicle because people will spot him. His DNA is all over his own car. But if you rent a car, could be anybody, granted, like, could be pretty easy to track who rented the car the most recently when the body was found and all of that. So, like, there's still some issues there. But he's renting these cars to go out and murder people. After a brief deployment in Egypt in the first half of 2000, Keyes returned to the States, bought an engagement ring, and proposed to that same boss's daughter that he had been lusting after since 1997. So, like, I mean, at least he was faithful, kind of. She, however, decided not to marry him after he began acting strangely, which had to be even crazier than he was already acting. Like, I can't imagine him acting even weirder than he probably already was. Like, imagine like a homeschool kid who is also super racist, super horny, and super alcoholic. And then just on top of that, just being super weird on top of being a homeschool kid, right? Like, this dude was already really weird. Keyes, though, was surprisingly not upset at all and ended up impregnating a girl named Tammy, who was half native and half black, which surely would have made his parents' heads explode if they had found out about it. By 2001, Keyes was living with Tammy in Nia Bay, Washington, where he began taking a lot of solo trips, which was odd since his current job didn't really require that much travel. Obviously, that's because he was just out murdering people, but the way he went about it made it incredibly difficult for police to track. In almost every instance, Keyes would fly to another state, rent a car, and then drive to another state to commit the murder. He only used cash, kept his cell phone turned off, and then often left quote-unquote murder kits in various locations that he would use once and then discard. And so this is why, I mean, like, This dude went so far out of the way to not only murder a lot of people, but to make it virtually impossible for him to get caught. Like, and again, you have to, and in order to do this, like, you have to have a lot of disposable income. And he clearly did. Like, he was making good money to where he could just fly somewhere, right? And here's the thing. Like, he had to fly somewhere, go out, drop off his murder kit somewhere, I guess, fly back home or fly to another location where he had already placed a murder kit, rent a car, find someone, kill someone with the murder kit, dispose of the murder kit, and then fly. Like, he's just doing all of this travel. And over the next 3 years, Keyes took several of these trips, right? Back home, Tammy was dealing with uterine cancer and an opioid addiction, which forced Keyes to take his daughter to another home on the reservation where they lived. As with his time in the Army, Keyes had a great reputation at the reservation, not just as a talented handyman, but a very skilled lover. The natives on whatever reservation they were at, the Makah Indian Reservation, and like Nia Bay and all of that, it is on the tip. It is like basically the northwesternmost point of the continental United States. Like, it's just across the bay from like Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Like, it is remote. So like he's got to drive probably 4 hours or so to get to the Seattle airport and then fly wherever he's going. So like he's really committed to this, and he's really committed to just banging all the single Indian ladies on the reservation, and they're on board with it, right? Whatever. In 2006, after several more solo trips to commit more murder, Keyes began taking trips down to Mexico for surgeries to alter his appearance to further cover up his murders. And again, so brilliant, right? Like, he's basically getting these plastic surgery procedures to alter his physical appearance so that if someone did witness him committing a murder and police give out a sketch, his face no longer matches the sketch. And so, just like, I can't believe no one else has really ever done that. The following year, in 2007, he moved to Anchorage, Alaska, and started Keyes Construction, where he worked as a handyman and a contractor in the area. Again, he developed an excellent reputation. He's probably really charismatic, you know, as most racists are. You know, they get you in, and then they throw in the, wouldn't them Jews, right? You know, it's like, ugh. So, you know, really great reputation up in Anchorage. A lot of people like him, like, he's doing a lot of good work, but he also kept taking a ton of these trips, which, again, is remarkable considering how expensive it is to fly and rent cars, right? Especially flying now out of Anchorage, Alaska. Not a lot of big flights coming in and out of Anchorage that are going to be pretty cheap, right? Like, you can probably get pretty cheap pond hopper to go to other places in Alaska, but now if you're trying to fly from Anchorage to, I don't know, like Dallas, several $100s, even in, you know, the mid 2000s when this is taking place, right? Just, you know, and he's doing this several times a year. And not only that, he's got to rent a car, take that car across state lines. If you're doing a multi-day car rental, that's probably another $500, easy, you know? And then in between these murder trips, he's still going down to Mexico and getting cheap Mexican plastic surgery, which is honestly probably the least expensive thing that he did, you know? Although police never got like a clear answer as to what specific surgeries he got, they did develop several theories. He did have surgery to remove his fingerprints, because obviously, of course you would do that. He had his body hair lasered so that he didn't leave anything at a crime scene. And that's brilliant, right? Like, on one hand, he still kept the hair on his head, but like his face, arms, legs, chest, wherever, completely like soft as a baby's bottom. And that's brilliant, right? Because again, how many times have we heard of a serial killer or even just a regular one-off murderer getting caught because police found strands of hair or other DNA at the scene of the crime? Well, Israel Keyes is like, nah, dog, I'm not letting that happen. And he's just getting all of the hair lasered off of his bodies. He also got Botox injections to prevent armpit perspiration so that, you know, any sweat that he developed, because murdering is physically laborious, I'm guessing, you know, don't want any sweat falling off and get, leaving DNA evidence in the car. He also underwent gastric bypass surgery to cut, not to lose weight. Like, he was never like a super obese, out of shape guy. Instead, he underwent a gastric bypass surgery to cut down on travel time so that he would spend less time eating and more time like getting to and from where he needed to go. So like you knock out, and that's, I mean, how often are you stopping to eat, right? Like on a road trip, like, I've done several road trips where, I'm trying to cover a lot of distance in a day. And like, at the very least, I'm going to stop twice for lunch and dinner. Probably going to stop maybe 3 times for a bathroom, maybe a little snacky snack. I don't know. And so, but again, dude's about efficiency. And so he just purposely got a surgery to make himself less hungry so he didn't waste time eating and snacking and I guess pooping. So, because that'll take up some time too. Anyway, by 2012, Keyes had taken dozens of trips and driven tens of thousands of miles all over the country to just kill people at random and rob banks. On one trip, he paid a visit to his sister and mother, who were now members of the Church of Wells, which was another insane radical church in rural Texas. The church was already rumored to be buying up properties in the town of Wells in an attempt to create their own Waco-like compound, and actively encouraged members to leave all friends and loved ones and spend more time hating themselves for every little sin they committed. That nothing else has really come up about this church. I think people kind of figured it out, or there's just this one little weird group of people down in Texas. But after spending a couple of days with his family acting erratically, even by his standards, Keyes drove to nearby Alto, Texas, broke into a home, and burned it down. He then drove 3 hours to Azle, dressed like the construction worker from the Village People, not making that up, and robbed a National Bank of Texas branch. 3 days later, Keyes returned to Alaska, where he went out to his shed and had sex with the dead body of Samantha Koenig, who he had been keeping there for more than 3 weeks. His daughter, during this, actually knocked on the shed door mid-necro, just daddy going at this corpse, and asked if he was coming back in for breakfast. Luckily for her, she did not see anything. It's just like, Daddy, are you coming in for breakfast? Yeah, honey, I'll be there in a minute. Anyway, I don't know why I had to act that part out. I'm sorry for that. At that point, though, Keyes had clearly lost his mind, right? Practically the entire city of Anchorage had been looking for this girl that Keyes was presently defiling in his shed. And he actually decided to try to get some of the reward money that had been posted. The problem was that it was hard to make someone who has been dead for 3 weeks look somewhat alive. However, Keyes managed to figure it out and pinned several Polaroid photographs on a pole at a nearby park, making it seem like this girl, Samantha Koenig, was alive and well. Keyes' note that he attached to the photographs requested $30,000 to be put into Samantha's bank account and indicated that she had run away to one of the southwestern states. With police now considering it a kidnapping case, which is a federal crime, the FBI got involved. And this is where Keyes finally messed up. Police advised Samantha's father to put $5,000 into the account, hoping to lure the kidnapper out, and it worked. Detectives watched as a man attempted to withdraw $600 from an ATM in Anchorage. However, that transaction was declined because the max withdrawal amount was only $500. So 2 hours later, they watched the same man successfully withdraw $500 from a different ATM. And at that point, police quickly sent the security footage to the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia, in an attempt to identify him. 3 days later, Keyes flew down to Las Vegas with his daughter, where he used Samantha Koenig's credit card to withdraw more money. Not credit card, but her ATM card. Security cameras captured Keyes' rental car, which then allowed them to track him down to an ATM in New Mexico, where he made another withdrawal. Police continued following him as he visited his mother and sister back in Wells, Texas. Again, just tracking these pings from the debit card before moving on to nearby Lufkin, Texas. So On March 13th, 2012, after over a decade of traveling all over the country and biohacking his body to be the perfect serial killer, Keyes was finally arrested in Lufkin, Texas. After finding an assortment of strange and concerning items in his rental car, such as a gun, a ski mask, a headlamp, a cell phone with the battery removed, and multiple transgender pornography DVDs, weird, police found Samantha Koenig's driver's license and debit card. Over the next 7 months, investigators interviewed Keyes at least 24 times in an attempt to give it as much information as possible. Keyes, however, of course he was going to make it difficult. Like, for whatever reason, like, he didn't want this sort of publicity that, like, probably someone like Ted Bundy wanted. And he just didn't want to be famous for his murders. He just kind of liked doing it to do it. One night, however, he was granted access to 1 hour of internet time to search for any articles that had been written about him. And then he was found dead in his jail cell 2 days later on December 1st, 2012. Bummer, because, like, it would have been really cool to just finally get him to crack and just explain all of his entire thought process. In the end, police only confirmed 3 murders, that of Samantha Koenig, as well as the murder of Bill and Lorraine Currier in Essex, Vermont. However, Keyes indicated on his suicide note, which is super long and creepy, that he had killed at least 11 people.
All done.
So there you go, the story of Israel Keyes in the books. Not going to do what did we learn, because I dangled the carrot. I said, his suicide letter was really creepy. Well, guess what I've got for you? I've got his suicide letter, you guys. So let me get some creepy music going in the back. This is an excerpt from it. The full picture of his note is posted, but it's hard to read it. But here's a good little excerpt, right? I looked in your eyes. They were so dark, warm, and trusting, as though you had not a worry or care. The more guiltless the gaze, the better potential to fill up those pools with your fear. Your wet lips were a promise of a secret unspoke. I don't know what lips he's talking about. You probably know what he's talking about. Nervous laugh. It burst like a pulse of blood from your throat. There will be no more laughter here. Forget the lady called Luck. She does not abide near me, for her powers don't extend to those who are deceased. Okay. He moved later on in the letter. Soon now, you'll join those ranks of dead, or your ashes the wind will soon blow. Family and friends will shed a few tears, pretend it's off to heaven you go. But the reality is you were just bones and meat, and with your brain died also your soul. Consume what you don't need, stars you idolize, pursue what you admit is a dream, then it's American die. Ooh, so punk rock. Then, wrapping up, last couple of paragraphs. Punch in the clock and sit on your ass, play stupid ass games on your phone. Paper on your wall says you got smarts, but you still crawl like the vermin you are once your precious power grid's blown. Oh, yeah, see, that's that. That's still that mentality of like, I'm getting off the grid. Anyway, and then on the last page, okay, all is over. Words are flaccid and weak. Back it with action or it all comes off as cheap. Watch close while I work now. Feel the electric of my touch. Open my trembling flower or your petals I crush. Okay, dork. Anyway, so there you go. That's that. Next week on the show, we're wrapping up Serial Killer September with another crazy, gross, insane story, that of Robert Ben Rhodes. So a good way to wrap up Serial Killer September. Thank you so much for continuing to listen. Keep telling all your friends and keep it weird.
This is a podcast